Most of us have been awestruck by the sheer power of volcanoes after the eruption of Mount St. Helens. Some experts compare its big blast with the power of 5,000 atomic bombs. But tonight, in part 3 of the Restless Cascades, Bill Van Amberg, Carl Wikman, and Dee Dixon give us a closer look at a volcano whose explosion size dwarfed St. Helens, Mount Mazama, known as Crater Lake, the Cascades' ultimate volcano. Here's Bill Van Amberg.
You're flying south over the southern Cascade Range, and even though early on a clear summer morning the air is already rough over the rolling, uneven terrain, all of a sudden you're over the lip of a huge hole at smooth air and the sights are astounding. You're flying over a huge body of water surrounded by sheer cliffs. It's 6 miles just to the other side. Suddenly you realize you're flying through space where there used to be rock. Where your plane is, there used to be a mountain. A massive mountain that blew itself apart just 6,600 years ago. You're inside the most violent volcano the Cascades have ever known, Mount Mazama, today's Crater Lake. On first look, this lake is possibly one of the most deceiving sights in nature. Nowhere are the views more sublime, nowhere is the water more blue, nowhere the beauty more enticing. But take a closer look. The deception quickly thins. Similar to the walls of Mount St. Helens, but on a scale that dwarfs them, it becomes obvious this rim is the sheared-off remains of a mountain's sides, the broken, jagged edges of former slopes that reached to a peak no longer there. The haggard survivors of nature's ultimate release.
I think some geologists would like to look at Crater Lake as the ultimate scenario of a Cascade volcano. This is the greatest thing that could happen. By greatest, I mean the biggest event that could probably happen in the Cascade volcano.
What's here today gives clues as to what was here before. The peak was huge, a wide, slowly sloping monster that might have reached 12,000 feet tall. That's a mile taller than the rim is now. Let's put that in perspective. Take Crater Lake as it is and imagine a mountain on top of it, 5,000 feet above its surroundings and about 5 to 6 miles across at the base. The old familiar form of Mount St. Helens fits. An entire mountain the size of our neighboring volcano fits the space Mazama destroyed. The forces that beheaded Mazama were as varied as they were massive. It took almost 1,000,000 years to build and only weeks or even days to make it fall. This desert of volcanic rock attests to the power pouring from Mazama's heart. It's an open scar stripped clean of life and left to bake by one of hundreds of superheated pyroclastic flows, hot ash blasts that race down the slopes. Even today, survival is iffy on this pyroclastic plain. But while the eruptions and hot flows were massive, the main destruction was gargantuan. Crater Lake's top did not blow out, it fell in. Cubic miles of solid rock that collapsed because there was nothing left under it to support it. The eruptions were so huge, so devastating, they drained off most of the magma chamber under the crater. On the order of 10 cubic miles of ash were blown out of this giant.
And that is spread across the countryside in 7 or 8 states plus 3 provinces of Canada, and in depths varying from a few tens of feet to a few hundreds of feet down to just tiny, tiny traces of it. But it can be distinguished very clearly as being from this location and from the event that caused the collapse.
So far, Mount St. Helens has lost between 1 and 1.5 cubic miles of rock. It's not even in Mazama's league. That peak displaced almost 17 times more rock than St. Helens, when you count the 15 cubic miles of summit that now sits about 2,000 feet under one of the deepest lakes in the world. While geologists ponder what exact process made that much of a mountain disappear, the rest of us can peer into that void and see what made the mountain exist. It's a chance to look inside a giant. These deeply cut U-shaped valleys surround the lake. They're the remains of massive glaciers, bisected by the blast, melted away. Only their formidable channels are left. Half their erosive work was done in vain because it's just no longer there. This slope shows the building of a Cascade volcano from the inside out. Each layer is a different lava flow or ash and pyroclastic deposit. There are 30 separate zones here, twisted and smashed under the incredible pressure of a building fire mountain. Each one shows the complicated tale of creation laid bare by destruction. This eerie form along one corner of the lake bears the name Phantom Ship, and it's a name strangely fitting, for it's the specter of a volcano that died for Mazama to live. It's a volcano that was engulfed by the ravenously expanding bulk of Mazama. Its sails were cracks or vents inside of it known as dikes. They filled with magma, cooled, and they've resisted not only erosion, but the death throes of the volcano that killed it, like a stubborn ghost haunting its murderer. Mazama gave life as well as took it, though. Its sides are dotted with epoch-like peaks of cinder cones and small volcanoes known as parasites. Mount Scott to the east now dominates the lake as the tallest peak, yet it used to be just one of the vents that shared Mazama's massive shoulders, and maybe even drained its volcanic core. But the greatest chance for new life comes from inside the caldera itself. Its collapse was not its end. Wizard Island and its lava flows are proof of that. Built amid the rubble of a collapsed cone, they're symmetrical new beginnings from jumbled debris. And buried underwater at the far end of the lake is a cone that's even larger than Wizard is. Still, experts are looking elsewhere for the next birth.
People frequently look at Wizard Island over here and suggest that as an active volcano. My experience suggests that that's a very low probability, and that cinder cones tend to have a short-term activity, and when they're done, they're done. The possibilities do exist that another event could occur. We might actually get a whole resurgence here of volcanic activity, and it's possible in, not immediate future, but in the necessary thousands or tens of thousands of years to build another Mount Mazama.
In the end, we all look to the lake, though, drawn back to this blue beauty over all else. The lake may be the youngest feature of this recent ruin, but experts are drawn by what it hides. Somewhere under this cold caldera cover, there is heat. The U.S. Geological Survey is spending 2 years probing that now, figuring out where it is, and what it means to the Cascades' ultimate volcano. Most of us like to think of Crater Lake as something eternal and unchanging. But as with all Cascade volcanoes, that's hardly the case. They're constantly in motion, not only from the erosion that is always wearing down the features, but from the volcanic forces that are lying in dormancy just beneath the surface. There's even the possibility that we could see new lava flows here, possibly filling in the crater, healing the wounds of 6,600 years ago. There's even a more remote chance that we could see activity begin again here in our own lifetimes. From Crater Lake National Park, I'm Bill Van Amberg for Channel 2 News.
The artwork done on Mount St. Helens was done by Bob Sanders from our art department. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock, Bill and crew will give us a different look at one of the two loneliest giants of the Restless Cascade Range, Mount Adams and Mount Jefferson.